هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. Good afternoon, everybody, and Assalamu alaikum. I would like to welcome our esteemed chief guest today, as well as the audience here. Welcome to the panel discussion of Punjab, where we shall be discussing the climate finance landscape in Punjab and the challenges posed by climate change to Punjab, and how do we plan on scaling up the climate action. Now, I would like to tell you that the realization that climate change is impacting Punjab and causing devastating havoc and wreaking havoc in the region runs deep, which is evident by the top leadership that is present here today. So I would like to request Honorable Chief Minister Punjab, Mr. Mohsin Naqvi, to kindly come on the podium and enlighten us with his thoughts on the occasion. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. On behalf of Punjab government, I would like to welcome you all. Discuss the challenges we have faced regarding climate change in Pakistan, particularly in Punjab province. Pakistan is the 8th most vulnerable country in the world to climate change. We have seen drastic impacts of this in the form of 2022 flooding, where 1/3 of the country was underwater and 33 million people were displaced. Punjab is the highest populated province of Pakistan with a population of 130 million people. It has faced unpredictable weather patterns in recent years. The Punjab government has been making all efforts possible to achieve climate change related targets set under Sustainable Development Goals in its commitment to the international community. We have introduced 6 new laws and policies to reduce plastic pollution and smog. Green technology strategy is also underway. We have also established an environment endowment fund with the seed money of $50 million to encourage green investment in private sector through grants and loans. We are aware of the challenges posed by climate change, and we acknowledge that a lot more needs to be done on our part to adopt fast changing ground realities. However, climate change is a trans-boundary challenge which requires countries to adopt an international and regional approach. For example, the decrease in air quality index due to smog has impacted both Indian and Pakistani Punjab. For proper resolution for the issue, there needs to be a collaborative approach across the border to identify the root causes and to formulate effective strategies to deal with the issue. Climate justice is shared responsibility which demands coordinated efforts from all the nations. Together we must forge a path towards a sustainable future, preserving the beauty of our planet and for the future generations. Thank you.
Sir, thank you so much for those insightful remarks. So today's session will mainly be divided into 2 parts. The first session we'll be discussing about the challenges that Punjab faces when we talk about climate change, and the second session we'll be talking about the climate finance landscape and how do we plan on scaling up climate action. So for the first session, I would request our panelist, number 1, Secretary Agriculture, to kindly join us on stage. Nader Chattha sir. I would also like to request Ms. Catherine Wong to join us. She's the UNDP climate change expert. I'd also like to request your Ruta, Mr. Imran Amin, to please join us on stage for the panel. And now I'd like to invite Mr. Ali Tauqi, the moderator for this session. He's a climate change expert and a member of the Pakistan Climate Change Council. Mr. Ali Tauqi, can you please kindly come here? Sir, you may please join the panel here. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
I just want to outline for everyone the purpose of this session is to develop a deeper understanding of Punjab's climate challenge, identify climate gap, the financial gap, and how we are struggling to meet that gap. Before we proceed, we would like to show you a small document. Go ahead.
Pakistan is responsible for less than 1% of global greenhouse gas emissions, yet it is facing a supersized price for man-made climate change.
Bangladesh and Pakistan have been experiencing unprecedented floods.
Thank you. You have seen the complexity of our development agenda and how deeply linked it is with the climate change crisis. Just a sentence on the financial gap, those international participants who are not aware, a year ago we had a flood costing us over $30 billion US. And now the estimates are that in coming years, our budget will be, the budget needed will be a lot more, and we're looking at a deficit of $448 billion, and we'll have the resources for only $48 billion, and we need to figure out, and this is the exercise, find out how we will generate $300 additional billion. And we are very fortunate with a very eminent panel today. With us is the Chief Secretary of the Punjab province, that is Pakistan's largest province, the most populous one and most prosperous one. And he is the Dean of Development and Climate Change Nexus in the province. So my very short question to you as the Dean of Development and Climate Change, how is climate change affecting your development agenda, and what is your vision for the future?
Thank you very much. Basically, when we touch this subject, it is like that innocent is being punished and we don't know when to play. We are contributing around in greenhouse emission, but we are one of the top 10 affected countries in the world. Because of these recent changes in weather, we are facing a lot of floods, heat waves, and many other challenges. For example, as we have seen last flood of 2022, where I was also involved in the implementation, it was a huge loss. I mean, people talk about 5 billion, 20 billion, 40 billion, but there are millions of people who lost their house, animals, they gone below poverty line. We try to help them a lot, but even then the gap is large. Punjab is half of the Pakistan, 130 million people. In 7 out of 10, most populous cities are in Punjab. So anything that is being happened there, we are the most affected province in the country. When we talk about the challenges, there are numbers, but I just mentioned 2 or 3 which are more important that we are facing at the moment. First is mostly air quality is low. Lahore now stands among top 3 cities in the world, almost in the daily ranking. That is due to number of reasons. There is stubble burning, which is happening both in India and Pakistan, and once, even if we try to manage, we get a lot of smoke from the other side of the border. Then there is regular pollution and industrial pollution. The Chief Minister visited in this forum as well. He took up this issue almost 5 years back, and he put all resources whichever were possible to manage this. But unfortunately, the quantum is very, very huge. It has an issue of livelihood. It has issue of there is no alternate for stubble burning at the moment. If we close the factories, then people would lost their jobs. So there is a very critical balance that we are facing. And in this area, I think that there is a lot of investment is required. We need to have industrial zone outside the cities. We need to put a plant in every industrial unit where the vehicle can be cleaned. There is a civil issues. I mean, there is a huge investment that we are looking for if we want to handle this issue. And this cannot happen with simple one government approach, or this is a world over, we need support from the whole world. This change in weather is also causing us a lot of difficulties. Last year, the hill torrents of Dera Ghazi Khan, I mean, these are just small torrents, but last year, they were bigger than even rivers. There were 300,000 cubics of water passing through small areas. And the speed is so high that they bring devastation to everywhere. Now, again in the river, the floods, both have affected Punjab and Sindh mostly. Now we need some bigger investment, otherwise this will start happening every 2-3 years. And then again the people will go through the same cycle of livelihood loss and all those things. Heat wave we are also experiencing a heat wave, which was unusual phenomenon. I mean, in 2015, almost 1,500 people died. So this heat wave is also, I will talk about agriculture, it is affecting every walk of life as well. Pakistan is, and especially the Punjab is mainly agriculture province, and this weather pattern, changing weather patterns are affecting us. There is a cropping pattern that are being changed. We don't have a seed to adjust to those cropping patterns. That needs a lot of research. Then crop fertility is another issue. Rising temperature and climate change adversely affect agriculture and crop yield. In the World Bank report 2022, From Swimming in the Sand to High and Sustainable Growth, the author have highlighted research which showed that in Punjab, for every 0.5 to 2 degree increase in temperature, the crop yield decreases by 8 to 10%. The climate-induced challenges in agriculture are a serious threat for our food security, since Punjab is the food basket of Punjab. Then again, all inputs for industry also come from the agriculture. Then industry is also going to fail. So this is a kind of thing that we are suffering from all all sides and we need a wholesome approach. And that is only possible. We are trying to make efforts. I mean, Chief Minister is very keen. He is working on smoke. We added one holiday in a week. Then he holds almost twice a week a meeting on the issue of environment. He is trying to look into this rain, artificial rain, ground ionization, then what air filtration. I mean, he's exploring all those options that we are working with him. He's sending a team to Kazakhstan. We are working all the partners to suggest us some solution. And there are things we can do and there are things that are coming from India. I mean, that would be a joint challenge. But again, these are all measures which can reduce our problem to 5%, 10%. But if we really want to manage it, we have to look into our industrial units, our vehicles, and all those factors which are affecting our daily life because population is growing at a large scale. And for that, I believe that we need a collaboration in research and investment. That is the only way forward we suggest. And I am grateful for this platform COP28 for inviting us and giving us this opportunity.
Thank you, sir, for outlining that how climate change has begun to our development growth rate and adversely affecting the lives and quality of life for a large number of people, and both in urban and rural areas. As a Dean of the Development of the Province, you have outlined in a very comprehensive manner. We are very fortunate to also have with us Iftikhar Sahu, who is spearheading this exercise, project by project, ministry by ministry, and department by department. Sir, I wanted to ask you a short question, if I may, that how the development agenda is influenced by climate change again, and what specific measures you are taking and prioritizing to increase resilience in the province.
Thank you, sir. Before I specifically respond to your questions, let me sensitize you and the distinguished delegates and participants. For Punjab, what is at stake? At stake is the life and livelihood of 30 million people. So what is at stake in Punjab for climate change challenges is the lives and livelihood of 130 million people living in the province. And just to share with you, population is double the size of population of the United Kingdom. Climate change, we all know, it's a threat multiplier. It is affecting us in every sector. As mentioned by the Chief Secretary of Punjab, we got a recent study conducted by the World Bank and another research done by the UNDP that if we in Punjab don't really come up with an action plan to handle the climate change, we are going to lose up to 15% of our GDP by the year 2050. And by our current GDP estimation, it's a staggering figure of $13 billion US. So as a head of planning and development in the province, the biggest challenge before me is to mainstream the climate financing in every aspect of development planning and the public investment choices that we make. We cannot see the climate finance and the issues of the environmental challenges that we face in sectors like agriculture, urban transport, energy, in silo. Planning paradigm of Punjab, we have started tagging our public investment vis-a-vis the climate change, whether it's the resilience, it's the adaptation, it's the mitigation. We are in a way investing in agriculture, in urban planning, the climate smart infrastructure, and very important, one aspect that I would like to focus on, transition to clean energy. Since Pakistan is a signatory and we've committed greenhouse gas emission reduction of 50%, and Punjab being the largest province has to be cognizant to play its role and contribute toward the national commitment. So in terms of transition to cleaner energy, we have the immense potential of solar, renewable energy, wind, hydro. We are also doing some demand side management, it's the energy conservation. We are bringing solarization in all our government infrastructure, mapping the renewable energy potential of the province. So there are a number of responses that are coming up. We are trying to mainstream the agenda. It's also important to share with you that under the leadership of Chief Minister Punjab, we have done some new initiative in terms of legislative and policy instrument done this year, like approval of the first clean air policy, coming up with the urban pollution and air quality management plan. We have been reaching out to different development partners. Some of the representatives are here to work with us and to help us in terms of building the capacity development of various departments to handle the climate change challenges. There is a host of actions being undertaken, but I think much more needs to be done, and that is the main purpose of coming to this global forum for a handshake with the international community in our endeavors, in our ambitions to handle the climate change challenges for the province of Punjab.
Thank you very much. And thank you, sir, also in particular for drawing our attention to that the climate challenge in Punjab is adaptation as well as mitigation. And through clean energy initiatives, you are addressing not only adaptation, but mitigation as well. In terms of financial gaps, a recent study, CCDR, had highlighted that we will need $152 billion for adaptation and $196 million for decarbonization. These are large sums, and it's a very opportune time for me to reach out to Radha Chathasa, who has immense responsibility on his shoulders. Punjab is the mainstay of Pakistan's economy. It's the breadbasket of Pakistan, not only of the province. In fact, Pakistan's produce, you can find it in many Central Asian countries, including perhaps Middle Eastern countries. So he's our agriculture production machine in charge. So if I may ask you that how climate change has made provincial economy more vulnerable, and how specifically you are trying to address that risk in various complex aspects of agriculture.
Thank you, Kabir Saab, so kind of you for asking this question. First and foremost, let me say on the outset that Punjab produces about 60% of the national agriculture output, which means 75% of wheat, 60% of rice, 97% of citrus, and 95% of vegetables. And we not only cater for the entire population of Punjab, but we also supply agriculture goods and products to the rest of the province. And being a responsible neighbor, our products also go to Afghanistan, Iran, and Central Asia. And so, as Secretary of Agriculture, I'm not just supposed to look at what is going on in Punjab, but how Punjab becomes a regional economic hub, and how Punjab, in the future coming years, keep feeding the adjoining regions. Now, with climate change challenges, first and foremost is the unpredictable weather conditions. One year we have more rains, the next year we have no rains, or we have less rains. Now, all this leads to less crop yield. Crop yield hovers between, from one year, it comes down to 20%, the next year it might climb up another 20%. The second challenge, it's an age-old practice, but now we are really facing the brunt, and that is in the way of smog, because farmers find it more convenient and economic to burn their crop residue rather than putting that to good use, and good use means either as organic fertilizer or for energy generation. So farmers simply burn the crop residue, and most of that is the rice straw burning. Now that leads to so much air pollution, smog in major metropolis, that in this year, in this season, Lahore, Multan was ranking in the top 10 high AQI index cities in the world. Now the double-edged sword is that if you prevent them physically from burning, we will not have the next wheat crop. And we need the wheat crop to feed not just Punjab's population, but the rest of the region's population. The third most significant impact is the water shortage. By water shortage, what I'm saying is that Punjab receives its 56 million acre water from the Indus River system, which means that there are three ranges in the north of Pakistan: the Karakoram range, the Himalayan region, and the Hindu Kush range. And we have one of the world's magnificent glaciers. These glaciers are melting fast at a rate of 2-3% every year, and it is expected that by the end of this century we will lose about 60% of our glacial mass. Now this means a reduction of crop water availability by around 20 to 25%. And farmers turn towards pumping underwater, subsurface water through use of tube wells. Now there are about 1.2 million tube wells in Punjab, and the 12% shortage of water from the Indus Basin River system is met through water pumping. Now that too also is environmentally really damaging. So this is my response to what the question. I hope it serves the purpose for now.
Thank you, sir. Well, my next panelist is Catherine Wong. Catherine is UNDP's Global Team Leader for Climate and Security Risk. And ma'am, before I ask you a question, I just want to ask all to know, our next door neighbor is France, and like Paris Agreement, you can't hear them very clearly. There are many conflicting sounds and voices. Question, ma'am, that I want to ask. You have heard from us the complexity of this agenda, evolving and compounding and incorporating. You heard our Chief Minister say that we want a just transition. We don't want the conflicts to be accentuated by the seriousness of climate change in the area. I wanted to ask you how your portfolio and the UNDP in general is a more active partner in the provincial development agenda.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the question. I'm really honoured to be able to speak Okay, I'll put myself in front of the screen. I think it's better, right? Okay, so I'll go slightly in this direction. But really a pleasure to join the panel today. I think a lot of excellent points were raised already, and one of the more exciting developments that we've seen here at COP over the last couple of days has been the endorsement by more than 120 countries of the climate change and health declaration that's been led by the UAE, and some new commitments, $300 million by the Global Fund, another $100 million by Rockefeller Foundation, and $50 million by the UK to tackle climate and health interconnections. And this is really important. You know, if you look at the latest IPCC report, for example, it shows that 150 million deaths will be avoided by the turn of the century if we get to net zero as soon as possible. And so we have co-benefits of health that are related to climate change. And so, as mentioned by Excellency and panelists earlier, there's definitely a win-win agenda that we're pursuing here in terms of climate, in terms of air pollution, and related implications for health as well. In the case of Pakistan, you know, I was fascinated to read, and you know, these are World Bank figures, but we're looking at about 22,000 deaths per year due to outdoor pollution, right? And another 28,000 deaths due to indoor pollution, and some 40 million cases of acute respiratory infection each year. So these are not small numbers, and they have impacts on broader economic development, right? We're looking at the number of work days lost per year as well, which ends up in the tens of thousands here. So I think critical risks that we can address for health, for lives and livelihoods, again by delivering on ambitious commitments that were mentioned under the Paris Agreement by Ali just now. The second point that I think is important here as well is the broader impacts, again, of food insecurity, of found crops, of climate disasters, on displacement. And if we're talking 8 million people in 1 year, this is actually something that we're seeing across our portfolio as UNDP, right? And more broadly, the UN system and the international community. Each year, displacement by climate-related natural resources outpaces displacement by conflict every single year. And only last year was that gap narrowed due to the war in Ukraine. But there are some very serious challenges again moving forward by not getting to net zero. And if you look at the World Bank's groundswell report, for example, it estimates something like 200 million people displaced within their own countries due to climate change by 2050. UNHCR puts a much higher figure of north of 1 billion people who will be displaced as well. So I think we need to think about what those impacts are, what they mean for social cohesion, what they mean for rural to urban migration flows, for example, and then also in the context of broader disaster response efforts as well, and being able to make sure that we are protecting those who are on the move and the most vulnerable in any different context in the immediate aftermath of climate-induced disasters. And then I think the other figure, the other report was really important that came out the day of the first day of COP was the WMO report, right? Because we're finding this year broke through that 1.5 degree barrier for the first time. And what did the report say? I mean, very shocking to me. We see figures like this all the time, but the hottest year on record. If we look at the last 9 years, the 9 hottest years that we have known, highest levels of GHG emissions that we have seen so far, lowest levels of sea ice, highest levels of sea level rise as well. And the Secretary General of WMO describes this as a cacophony of broken records. So if we're looking in terms of what the challenges are, they are immense. But there are so many opportunities here as well, and so many different sustainable development goals that we can advance achievement against by making sure that we deliver on climate in tandem with development.
Thank you, ma'am. And thank you for highlighting in a very integrated manner the range of issues and options available to us and waiting for our decisions and action in partnership with you. And my final panelist is Imran Amin Sahib. Imran Sahib, you are implementing the largest real estate project in the province. How will it contribute to low emissions and climate resilient development?
Thank you very much, Dr. Saab, for giving me this opportunity to present my views on the real estate development that we're doing in Punjab, especially in the wake of the climate change challenges that we face now. As my colleagues have already mentioned, the policy measures that Punjab has taken for climate change and the measures that we used to mitigate it. We are now rethinking of our master planning and urban strategies that were earlier proposed for these developments. For instance, I don't think so we have a chance now but to go for a green and a lead sustainable structures, be it expansion of our cities or the remaster planning of our cities. So similarly, that's the first challenge and the first step that we have taken already. Since Islamabad, this is the first city that is being developed in Punjab, and this is based on the green principles. We have changed land use now, principally a lot towards now with the challenges of these climate changes. The river, once that used to go through Lahore and Sheikhupura, has now vanished, and now we are open up toward these flood threats that come now every year. So in order to mitigate these floods and then to keep this water as a reservoir as well, we have proposed 3 reservoirs over there. And we have changed with the help of our consultants, so climate change specialists, whereas we have changed the banks now to earthen embankments to ensure that they are aligned with the environmental standards that we follow in our urban developments, and as well as it provide a clear river bank to to Lahore as well. Now, in terms of the transport, which is an important aspect of our city, and that is to bring population of Lahore towards north, we've included all our ports, which is of around 300 to 450 out of them, as a very clear mass transit line that we have already introduced in our master plan. Now, this master plan will act as a corridor for electric vehicles, be it train or buses that can be run over there. And this is where we need global support in terms of the technology transfer that we need in this urban development, especially now. We're already in just less than 1% of carbon emissions. But if we're able to reduce more by these practices, we're already on it. We've already done several studies and strategies and to look into this. What we need now is financing and the technology transfer that is required for urban development. Forest cover is another challenge that we have over here. We have deforestation that happens in Pakistan very frequently, especially in Punjab. Around 7,000 to 8,000 acres of forest land has now been identified in our urban developments that we are converting back to forestation. And that also through the carbon credit that has been recently approved by the provincial cabinet and the worthy chief minister of Punjab. Now this would probably be the first carbon credit project that we are doing in Punjab now. And we'll further go on by converting the solid waste management, the landfill sites that we have around Lahore and in Punjab, by converting them again into solar and eco parks. So these are several strategies that have already taken place that has got the approval of the provincial cabinet and the chief minister. We're well aware of how the climate change is affecting Punjab. Inshallah, overall strategies that are being prepared are ready for it, less the support of the technology transfer and financing, as I mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, and thank you all the panelists for drawing a sketch picture for us of the complexity of development agenda in the province. We know and we learn that how the cost of development is going up and up and up, and how meeting the SDG challenge is becoming more and more elusive. And now imperative it has become for us to find creative ways to fill the finance gap. Traditionally, finances was the federal responsibility, and provinces have a new role for them to learn and directly access international finance from different windows. There are new challenges emerging in terms of public-private partnerships. There are new challenges emerging in terms of mobilizing private sector funds, and then creating creative mechanisms to muster finances from multiple stakeholders in terms of blending and leveraging and so on and so forth. It is fairly possible. I'm personally very confident that the existing portfolio can be multiplied 5 times by mobilizing and leveraging what we have in a short period of time of 3 to 5 years. With that kind of optimism, I want to now formally request my colleague to begin the next session.
Sir Ali Toki, thank you so much for the session. Now, I would request our next, thank you Ms. Catherine Wong for your valuable contributions. I would also like to thank the Secretary of Agriculture, NCO Ruda, and the Chief Secretary Punjab for his valuable contributions. Sir, if you may please take the seat and start the next session. So we were discussing the challenges posed to Punjab by climate change, and now comes the actual challenge. The actual challenge is identifying the financial gaps and scaling up climate action. For this, we welcome our panelist, Ms. Deena Umali. Ms. Deena Umali is South Asia Regional Director for Sustainable Development at the World Bank. We'd like to welcome our Secretary Environment, Mr. Rashkumar Rahman. And now our moderator, Dr. Abrad Chaudhary, who's a professor at the Said Business School, Oxford. Abrad Saab specializes in areas of climate action, climate finance, and sustainable development. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Sabah, and welcome everyone. It's a real pleasure to have you here. Today's day is multi-level action, and so really hearing from what's happening on ground becomes extremely important. A lot of times when we look at climate policy, we look at climate action, we're looking at this big picture approach. But really where the action happens is on ground. So it's so wonderful to have an esteemed panel that can really talk about what are we seeing from ground. But before I start that, I just wanted to maybe highlight one thing. Like in 2010, Pakistan experienced massive flooding. And 1/5 of the country was underwater. And really that's where my climate journey also started, because I wasn't in climate, but I was very curious. So I went around, I went to experts, I went to policymakers, I went to funders, and I asked them this question. I said, what happened? Why did these floods come in? We have a huge country, 1/5 is underwater, and you're saying there's a $10 billion loss. And the answer I got was that this is a flood of a century. It's not climate change, it's an anomaly. And we can't prepare for these disasters. And we all know what happened 12 years later, 2022. 1/3 of the country, $30 billion loss. And I think the stats try to come in. So we know that this is not an anomaly. And the action really needs to happen on ground. That's where the populations are, that's where people are. And one of the key barriers that we have here is climate finance. Because we talk about programs, we talk about projects, but the question is, where will the money come from? So what we've seen at this COP so far is that, it's safe to say it's a COP of finance. In the first 4 days, we've had commitments of $58 billion, and that's unprecedented. And that's just the 4 days. So I'm sure in the next 4 days or 5 days, if we update within 6 days, if we update this number would go up. So the question here right now for our panelists, for everyone here is, it's not about finance, but how will our work, how will our projects meet that finance too? So it's not about we need money. What are the steps that we will take to move towards that finance? So I think that's the line of questioning I want to start. You've done very well to highlight the challenges that we have in Punjab, the enormity of Punjab, the significance of Punjab. I think we have to really recognize that Punjab is critical not just for Pakistan, but for the entire world. On day 2, we had this project on Living Indus, which was like, if the Indus dies, it represents 200 million people. It's the entire economy, it's the entire civilization. So really we want to see what needs to happen on ground. So on that note, I wanted to start with the chairman planning and really understand, you already started to mention that climate is impacting 15% of our GDP, and you're also talking about this $50 million fund, but could you maybe elaborate and go deeper into what are the specific steps that Punjab is taking when it comes to accessing international finance, but also opportunities of accessing local finance?
Thank you, Grasab. You very elaborately captured the essence of our discussion, and we have seen and we have heard about the situation on ground, the challenges, the implications for the climate change in Punjab. But coming to the real part of our today's session, the financing needs, gaps, and how to reach out to those financing platforms. As the Chairman of Planning and Development of Punjab, my biggest responsibility as well as my biggest challenge is to manage the finances for the development of the project. Now we have seen different estimates, different studies, putting different figures to the financing needs for the projects of Punjab in terms of responding to the challenges. One figure that a recent Asian Development Bank research study puts on record is that Punjab needs, by the end of 2050, an annual investment of 15 billion US dollars. A province which is spending at the moment up to 2 billion US dollars, our entire development program of the province, province of 130 million people. If we want to grow, and if we want to grow with a decent 6 to 7% growth rate on a sustainable basis, maybe $15 billion annual investment is the minimum price tag. And if we compare it with the current resource base of the Punjab, so for me, as the head of planning, the biggest worry is that we have to make very difficult choices for our investment option. We need to invest in agriculture as elaborated, it's the bread basket, it's the backbone of the economy of the province as well as the Punjab. Our urban centers, and mind you, we are the most rapidly urbanizing region in the South Asia. So we need to build a decent urban resilient infrastructure in our urban cities. For decarbonization and transition to cleaner energy, we need to invest in renewables. For all this, we need to have funds. I'm also very cognizant that I will not be having the public finances to match the needs. And maybe they are under great stress because of the macroeconomic situation and the economic challenges that my country is passing through. So the only way forward and the option left is to move for the alternate innovative sources of financing. And that doesn't come from the public resources, it's from the private resources, it's from the global climate financing funds and platforms created. But for that we have to do a lot of groundwork at home, especially for Punjab. So we have to develop the technical capabilities of our departments to design the projects that can meet the criteria for those financing avenues where we need to reach out. We have to train our departmental human resource. We have to design the private-public financing partnerships, how to leverage the private financing, not only globally but also to reach out to the public and private partnership first within our own country. The private financing available, the banking financing that we have at our disposal, we have to reach out to those platforms, and then we have to reach out to the global fund. So in Punjab, we are now working. We have established a dedicated climate finance unit in Planning and Development Board, a team of professionals, and we are trying to now develop partner with private sector universities to create an alliance to work on preparing Punjab for reaching out to global climate related funds as well as carbon credit markets under the overall policy framework of the government of Punjab and the government of Pakistan. These are some of the action, some of the preparatory steps that we are doing at the moment, because to reach out to different forums, we are also in the process of accreditation of the Planning and Development Board for the green funding, trying to also reach out to the international agencies which have been accredited for these financing platforms and working with us. This is just a brief summary of our actions and preparations to look for innovative financing for meeting the huge unmet demand of the climate financing in the province of Punjab. Thank you.
So thank you so much. And actually the figure that you mentioned, like that our budget is $2 billion as opposed to a cost of $15 billion cost, is like alarm. Like when you think of that scale and that gap, you start to recognize that, in order for us to develop, we need funding, because if we continue to develop and on the other side there's a damage cost, it takes away all the development effort. So how do we create that sustainable development plan? I will come back to you on the finance unit, because I think that's a really important point. But I did want to touch on one more point that you mentioned, and I think that's also globally. What we're seeing is that grant money is drying up. Concessional loan money is also drying up, and maybe I'll check with Dina on that. But the reason is because the scale of the challenge is growing. So Pakistan is not alone in this climate challenge, right? When we go out, if we just walk across in the next pavilion, they'll probably talk about similar number or maybe even more number. So we recognize that collectively it's a big problem. And so where will the money come from? And I think you started on that, and I think that's a really important point. It's the private sector. I think even at the COP Secretariat, the bulk of the $58 billion that were announced, 30 billion is from the private sector. So the government is asking UAE private sectors to come and step up and saying, you are causing the problem, you have to be part of the solution. So I think sometimes it's unfair that we expect the Punjab department or a government department to bear the cost, where the cause is coming from somewhere else. So it's all about engaging, it's all about being good citizens and corporate citizens. But what the government can start to do is say, okay, I have $200 million, how do I convert it into $2 billion? Where will the rest will come in? We will give you all the enabling environment, but you have to bring in that money. Maybe I'll jump to Dina and I will come to you also because I want to know a little bit more on the adaptation and mitigation side. But I know that the World Bank has been instrumental in supporting Pakistan. It has an ongoing project going as well for I think it's $273 million, right, for the Greenland project. What is your view? I know you're doing a lot, but what more can World Bank do, and how can it be much more specific to plug that gap?
Thank you very much for that question. First, I would also like to thank the government of Punjab for inviting me to this panel. I think, like you said, the need for climate finance is going to be large. And I think the question for the government of Punjab is how can we access all the various climate finance funds that are out there. And I was very happy to hear that we're already in the province talking about expanding forestry, greening buildings, talking about more resilient agriculture. I think these are very important untapped opportunities. Just for the example of agriculture, Punjab is I think one of the bread baskets of the country, but also the world. Punjab is one of the biggest producers of rice. I understand 5.5 million tons of rice last year. Now, people are not aware that rice production also involves a lot of methane emissions. And, because of the way it's grown, but it's also in the way the farmers fertilize. So you get methane emissions and you get nitrous oxide emissions. So we've had experience in other countries where we were able to reduce that emissions. So for example, in Vietnam, we worked with 150,000 farmers in planting rice in 187 hectares. And with the adoption of better seeds, better water management, and reduced fertilizers, it turned out that farmers could make money. Their profit increased by 30% because you reduce your cost. At the same time, we were able to reduce methane emissions or greenhouse gas emissions at 8 tons per hectare. And so overall, they were able, in this 187,000 hectares, able to reduce 1 million tons of GHG emissions. So now we're working to sell those credits. and the idea is through the Transformative Carbon Asset Facility, they will pay $10 per ton of emission reduced. So that's $10 million per year. And in 5 years, it's $50 million per year. And so I've been given that rice is so important to the economy of Punjab, and I think the Department of Agriculture is already doing so much. Why can we take advantage and measure these emission reductions so that money can also come back to the ministry and also the farmers, because they're the ones generating the emission reductions. We can do the same with livestock. I think Punjab also has like 30 million cattle, where there are also emission reduction opportunities, methane emission reduction opportunities that are also eligible for this carbon payments or carbon credits. One can do the same with solid waste management. Actually, we're working with the Punjab Rural Water Supply and Sanitation to also get credits from emission reduction for more efficient water delivery, use of solar energy, and one can do the same for solid waste management. And so it's kind of the opportunity waiting to be taken advantage of. And what's quite important then is to develop the systems to be able to measure these emission reductions, which is what we call the monitoring, reporting, and verification systems, to bring back, I think, these untapped opportunities for the province.
Thank you so much, Dean. And I think it's so important to learn, what is, because we traditionally look at loans or grants or equity, but it's really important to know like what are other innovative mechanisms and getting some of these credits. Like I didn't know about the methane credits and the funding that's available, and I think that's something that I can very well imagine that a finance unit in P&D could build that out very quickly and with the right linkages with the right experts. So I think getting that technical expertise and all the good work that the World Bank is doing or the multilaterals are doing, getting that information is extremely important. Let me jump to our Secretary Environment, Rashid. We started to talk about, when we talk about climate, I think often it's about this mitigation or adaptation, and we combine all these things together, but we also know the stats that there's very little money that comes in adaptation. Most of the conversation here is also about mitigation or carbon or clean energy, and I know that's important for Pakistan and the country, but the real challenge or the real approach is how do we get more funding for adaptation, the challenge that we're already facing. So I just want to know from the Environment Department, how do you see both mitigation and adaptation playing a role, and what are the efforts you want to make, or what are the priorities for the department itself on this space?
Very rightly put. I think when you are ranking at 8th in the world, which are hit by the climate, and you ought to have certain steps that you're taking yourself or with the help of others, then the adaptation and mitigation both come into play. But for Pakistan, which is affected by whose GDP is affected 14.6% by air pollution, by flooding and by rising temperatures. And later on, when you see that there are other issues that are affecting it, so if your 20% of GDP is marred by other sections, these things, if 20% of your GDP is affected by these things, you ought to go into adaptation mode and also a mitigation mode as well. So Punjab as a province acknowledges the National Adaptation Plan, and we are working on various regions at the governance, at the technical and at the financial level, as the Chairman of PND pointed out. At the governance level, we see that earlier the climate change was not even at the provincial level, and it has been now, Environment Protection Department has now been tasked with the duty of climate change as well. And also the project that Madam talked about, the World Bank, the Green Development Program, we are going to have 3 autonomous bodies in the Environment Department. They will be dealing with environment monitoring, environment technical and environment policy making. So this way we will be able to help ourselves more by having these adaptive technologies. Furthermore, when you talk of disaster, we have the multi-hazard vulnerability risk assessment of 20 villages of this province. So that helps a lot when you are met with the disaster, and then you don't have to think again where you are coming in from. And similarly, when you talk of other things where agriculture is involved, you have to go into certain technical and smart agriculture techniques where you come in. Madam was talking about the methane that is coming from paddy fields, cultivation. And Dr. Ajay Banga, who is the head of the World Bank, talked on the 1st of December of this COP28. We are facing the challenge of methane then, and after when it is done, it is cultivated, again we are burning it. So our problem is, in duplicate. Even when you have cut the product, it even is coming as a menace to us. And when you talk about the mitigation techniques and adaptation, at the technical level, you ought to have it for your different industries and sectors, like the clean air water policy that we had. Then we had the smog group. Recently, we are facing the brunt of the smog, and all of our departments are taking cognizance of that. And you know, the nitric oxide, the sulfur dioxides, the aerosols, so much come into play that you have to have this adaptive and mitigation as well. Certainly adaptation is the foremost part, but mitigation is also there. We ought to, equip ourselves with certain technologies, certain ways where we can mitigate, and we are very much signatories of the global methane, which was in the COP26, and we are also going to reduce the GHG emissions by 30%. We have to be looking for that, and we are also to up the use of resources that are reusable by 60%. And then the electrical vehicles, we have to up the ante for that as well by like 30% till 2030. So these are the biggest steps that both go hand in hand in the adaptation as well as in the mitigation.
Thank you so much. And honestly, it's very heartening to know that there are so many solutions already out there. So it's not that we are all working and trying to figure out. We do have the solutions. We do have all those strategies that are in place. Actually, a few years ago, I did some work on climate smart agriculture. I created the Punjab and Pakistan profile. Just talking to experts and finding all those strategies. And one of the biggest lessons that came in that there's so much already that's happening on the ground. Now the next question is, how do we build the right financing structure, the right policy, and the right stakeholder to take the good things forward and stop the things that shouldn't be happening. But the things are already happening, strategies are happening, and I think sometimes we underestimate the amount of work that happens. But Chief Secretary, I wanted to come to you on one because you sit in a very, very critical situation or position where you can see all different parts. And we've had many secretaries come in, and one key thing that always is not just criticism for Punjab, but criticism for any local initiative is coordination. That yes, we hear all these wonderful things from all these different people, but we often lack coordination. And as I said, it's not just Punjab, it's across the world. I wanted to get your view, how are you going to build the right coordination, collaboration, and what would your thoughts be for everyone to actually learn from Punjab in building some of the coordination efforts?
Thank you very much. I think this is a key thing for any government department or agencies or organization. And we have learned that there are areas where we have a better understanding and we have a very clear way forward. In those areas, it is very easy to coordinate people, to convince people, to create stakeholders, to coordinate things. But the area that you are talking, we are just at a starting point. I mean, this carbon credit thing, forestation, getting carbon credit, getting funding, working with World Bank, even achieving their DLIs, buying electric buses, running those buses, their business models, bringing electric motorcycles, shifting industries from the urban areas, using animal waste bringing animal waste to energy. I mean, there are hundreds of areas where we have just started. The awareness is there, and this is, I should be very frank, this stubble burning or smoke in the moor, that has actually changed the whole mindset of everybody. there was a kind of awareness before that as well, but the push was not there. Now with this smoke element, I mean, half of the Punjab is affected. People are going through respiratory diseases. You cannot sit outside. I mean, in such a nice weather, when you have 18-20 degrees temperature, but you cannot sit outside. You have put filters in your rooms. You are wearing masks. The people in Punjab or Pakistan, they are not well aware of these things before. So there is a serious kind of issue, awareness among us, and I don't think that now way forward would be any difficulty. Chairman PND, Chief Minister, they, myself and all secretaries, we are very well aware. The difficulty is that we are not finding a right kind of solution. Still we are searching for solutions. And here, the World Bank or your institution or all international institutions, I mean, we're still struggling to find out that what is the major cause. I mean, all are causing yes, different kind of pollution. But what is their percentage, which is affecting more, which can be handled easily? These are the questions that Secretary Environment is at the moment working. So I don't think that coordination would be an issue. The Federation Secretariat is very well organized. Their Secretary is Minister, Chief Secretary and Chief Minister. So coordination won't be an issue. We just need to know the proper causes and proper solutions and way forward on that. And I think that would help.
Thank you so much, and you have a very valid point that unless and until you don't measure, you can't act on it. And I think having evidence-based decision making becomes extremely important. And we've seen that in the past, many countries have wasted a lot of precious resources because they weren't focusing on the right problem. And I think we need to spend more time articulating the problem as well. Often we jump to solutions and we say, okay, we see something and we're like, this is the solution. And I think that we have to, I guess, pull ourselves back a little bit and say, let's get the right, as you point out, let's get the right evidence, let's get the right data, and let's find the right partners who can support with us. I think the solutions are there, but we need to be a little patient. I'll do a quick round of 1 or 2 questions, but I do want to open it for audience. I know we're at 20 minutes, but I know I want to bring audience as well if they have any questions. But I just wanted to ask Hari Sahu just one question. You started on this climate finance unit, and I think that's a great step. But could you give us a little bit more about the vision? What do you expect the climate finance unit to do, and what would be its goal, and how can we all support you in that as well?
I think we are coming back to the core issue. We all know that there are global commitments. We all know that there are global funding platforms available. For a country like Pakistan and a province like Punjab, I think first of all I have to put my own house in order, and I have to develop the capacity to make the indigenous solutions, develop and design the project as per the local condition, trying to develop the capacity of my department. Then I have to develop the partnerships with the financial institutions, partnership with the academia, with the local financial institutions. Was, as earlier mentioned, our financing challenges, financing gaps are huge. We have taken the first steps, we have created the units, we are creating the partnerships. We want to leverage the financial institutions and public finances available at home. We reach out to the global fund. Just sharing with you some of the innovative financing model that government of Punjab is practicing is like for supporting our agriculture farmers for making the transition to agri-mechanization. We have developed with the help of the local banks the financing arrangement for the concessional financing where the government is going to pick up the cost of the financing. Similarly, for the industries, and mostly we are getting 90% of the small and medium industries for the transition to clean technology and energy efficient machinery. And similar kind of model is being developed. But for reaching out to the CGF, Global Environmental Facility, Adaptation Fund, Loss and Energy Fund, we need to start working very professionally at the moment. We have created this unit for this purpose that we need to get the regulation. We need to reach out to the institutions which are already accredited and which are working with us as the development partner. So I think this future of our development financing is how effectively and how professionally we prepare ourselves to be eligible technically to reach out to the different financing forums available at home as well as abroad. This is a step in that direction, but I believe that much more needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe maybe quick response from you. Maybe support. The World Bank looks at so many different countries. Here we are saying the motivation is there, the coordination will be there. We understand the problems. We know what some of the solutions are. What would your support, not just financial, what would be your support and advice in how to scale and build this real world-class finance unit that can access the funding that's available across the world? What would you offer?
I think having climate finance units is very important. Want to even look at where the challenges are, like we did before, emission reduction opportunities, and then develop I would call the business proposal that we can then submit to the different funds. For example, the World Bank announced this global methane fund during the COP that's supposed to target emission reduction, methane emission reductions in rice livestock and solid waste management. So the question is, how do we package a proposal then to say, well, this is our project and our plan to achieve, let's say, 5 million tons of emission reduction or methane reductions, and therefore we want you to support our program. So I understand they will support 18 countries in the first year. So how can we help you make Punjab the first in line in terms of this new fund?
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, and I think we have the challenges but also solutions available in this room. And I think it's more about having that conversation, coordination, but as you said, having a specific unit starts to help because you become focused. Let me get to the audience. I know it's thinned out a little bit, but any questions here? Yes, please.
Thank you. Thanks for all the distinguished speakers. This is Qin. I'm sitting here maybe. So this is Qin Wang from UN Women China Office. UN Women China Office, Gender and Climate Change Program Officer. So very honored to be here today. I do have two quick reflections I want to share. So first, for the finance, it's global consensus that we need to increase the volume of climate finance. But what I also want to say here is that we have to think about the leaving the one behind principle, and we need to have a clear monitoring mechanism for this climate finance, whether it is benefiting the vulnerable groups, including women, including rural women, which is the majority part of the population in the agriculture sector. So that is that we cannot really neglect from that. And another point is that we actually can build up boost the economic, the GDP through empowering women, through supporting them to have the green jobs, or to support them to have the climate smart agricultural technology, through supporting them to go into the STEM sectors. So there is a big chance that we can have a developing economy through supporting So I'm here to speak on myself, but also speak on behalf of my Pakistan office colleagues who unfortunately could not be here today. And we have been closely collaborate since the past many years. And in my project, I've already supported rural women in China to access climate smart agriculture technology as well as solar energy right now. So I'm more than happy to keep the conversation, and I'm happy to say on behalf of my Pakistan colleague to if you need any technical support, we are happy to collaborate.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nat. Does anyone, I don't think there was any specific question here, but I think we do appreciate this help and this support. Maybe we'll take that question. There's another one question behind. But I just want to say, yes, I think gender is extremely important and every stakeholder is extremely important. I think bringing those voices in and ensuring when we're working on those plans and your department, your work people needs to come in. So many thanks for your support.
Hi, I'm from the Philippines, the Earth Savers. I'm here because a Pakistani colleague in the Climate Institute was working with us in the Philippines. And very early on, before all the raging floods hit you, we had a study done by the Climate Institute, which was supported by ADB and my husband, who was Secretary in charge of Environment. An 8-country study of the most vulnerable in Asia, and on top was, besides the Philippines, was Pakistan. And so he called for leaders forum, and he insisted on having Benazir Bhutto to come because he saw what was going to happen to Pakistan. And luckily we were able to get her. She came and we forged what we call the Manila Declaration for the Protection of Small Island States and Archipelagic Countries from Climate Change. It was submitted in 1995 in the first COP in Berlin. We joined there. We'd like to put into the table, truly we need the financial push, definitely. But there is a gap in cultural communications. May I just say, your panel was so good, but it is about, 100 people plus those who are online. In our country, that happens. They have all kinds of studies and among themselves. It's incestuous. You have to reach every sector. Everybody is saying, don't leave anybody behind, but the vulnerable groups do not understand the climate science. They don't know what is happening. They are not informed effectively to engage them, to motivate them, to take action for themselves, and to be in partnerships. So, we wish to say, and would like to invite you, we're having a forum to push for the cultural SDGs resilient education, to hit the people on the ground. You're talking on the ground. If the farmer, if the fisherman, if the driver of the transport ships are not aware, the household help, and even in their cooking and everything, you're not going to accomplish what you want. So you cannot leave communications. And it's always absent. There's no money from any of the banks to say about culture-based education on climate or SDGs. The SDGs in school, they just memorize. Okay, SDG 1, no to poverty. So what is no to poverty? How are you going to rise above this poverty? So please consider culture. We are artists, but we don't want to take from the money for loss and damage and everything. But we'd like to find out if your government will support a proposal we are initiating there is such a thing as a debt for culture and education SDG swap. We need that, and we will mobilize artists, teachers all over the world to hit the spot, the conscientization, the enhancement of the mind to change values, attitudes, behavior, so that we stop violence against mankind and Mother Earth. So there's a World Bank here. Her name sounds Filipina. I don't know if she is. I hope we can reach you because we go through the agony of this thing, doing everything for culture as the instrument, the catalyst for relevant education. Your cultural initiative is to fund the entertainment stars as your recreation period when you have events. So please consider it. Debt for SDGs Culture Education Swap.
A very, very valid point, and I think that's at the heart of any development. That the whole notion is about equity, making sure that we focus on the most vulnerable, and I'm sure we will take on your excellent offer of saying how do you start to think about culture. It's implicit, but I think what you're doing is helping us think about being split. And if you come to Pakistan, you'll see so many different cultures, even within the Punjab. I don't know the number of languages or the language of ethnicity, but we represent one province, yet we have a lot of different requirements. So thank you so much. Let's take the last question. It's almost our time, but yes, please go ahead.
Hello, Assalamualaikum. My name is Shajia. I'm a policy associate with Climate Finance Pakistan. I firstly want to commend you for all the insightful information you've given as to the actions of the government. So, Dr. Abrar, you talked about the need for capacity building. Lisa talked about the climate finance unit that will be used to access the funding that Dina ma'am was talking about. My question is that capacity building is not something that happens overnight. It is the assumption that if a university freshman is introduced to these concepts in their first year, it will take around 4 years for them to build that capacity and then to graduate into the workspace where they will be able to actively contribute to their country. My question to the Planning and Development Department is how are you coordinating across ministries and local universities to ensure that young Pakistanis are given the kind of capacity that they need to actively contribute to this climate finance? Thank you.
Who would like to?
Thank you so much. You have raised a very important question, and I totally agree that capacity development, although it's a major issue and state and local, it cannot be created, addressed, or done overnight by a single department, creating some administrative units or some departmental organization within the government sector. It needs to have not only whole of the government approach, but we need to integrate it with the public sector, private sector, academia. I already mentioned in my talk that we are now working very closely with the leading universities, with the financial institutions, with the private sector, experts, NGOs. We want to make a very collective and holistic approach, because this is not hiring a few experts, putting them in our unit, in a department, and then we claim that we have created a capacity to handle, to address such a huge challenge. I totally agree, and this is also our approach at the moment, to work with all the actors, stakeholders, most importantly outside the government, for collective action and collective preparation to handle this challenge. And I just one response to the observation raised about the two distinguished ladies. The key theme was no one should be left behind. I think that is the major agenda of this forum. That globally, no country, no vulnerable country should be left behind. Within a country, no vulnerable region should be left behind. Within a region, no vulnerable community should be left behind. So I think it is the way forward, and my departing comment from this forum and COP can be the best forum where we now need to build the partnerships. I think there is a lot of commitments. Those commitments have to be transformed into disbursements. The intentions have to be transformed into actions. We have to see a very result-oriented action plan by the global community to come forward and help the vulnerable communities to meet the rising cost of their response and their actions to the challenges of climate change. And I again would like to express my gratitude to the organizer of this session, all the distinguished moderator, panelists, and the delegate for joining us in this session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. On that note, okay, let's go.
Thank you. After 3 female questions, probably 1 male question.
Fair enough.
Okay. My name is Nasser Khattan from the Climate Institute, as Cecil mentioned. I've been working on climate change for 37 years. This is my only 20th talk. So a lot of talk has gone into the process. A lot of progress has been made, not enough. Right? We see the results. But I want to. We are also working on electrification of transport sector, which I wanted to mention. You mentioned clean energy, so I want to just ask a brief question to children planning. Because the electrification of transport, for example, in the case of Pakistan, is one of those solutions where a lot can be achieved when you reduce emissions, air pollution, smog, when you create jobs, also reduce dependence on imported oil. So, how can you accelerate, for example, can you phase out the gas rickshaws in a certain number of years? Is there any financing available for people to buy electric rickshaws or scooters or electric cars to make, reduce some duties? So those are the low-hanging fruit. With very little effort, a lot can be achieved, especially because it's commercially viable. It's 1/3 or 1/4 the cost dollar per mile or rupee per kilometer when you are driving electric. So it's a win-win all the way around. So what are you doing to sort of expedite that process and finance?
Time, my very quick response is that you're very right. We in the Punjab are doing a number of actions to take a transition to the electric vehicle. Number one, the government of Punjab under a World Bank funded Punjab Green Development Program is now moving for the electric buses to be used as a preferred option of urban mass transit system, and we are introducing it in the city of Lahore and likely to introduce other major urban centers where electric buses will be used as public transport. Government of Punjab has, and also the government of Pakistan has announced some incentive for the electric vehicles in terms of taxi registrations, and that people should be encouraged to move to the electric car, the electric vehicle. We are also promoting the electric bikes. So the Punjab government has put a ban on purchase of the petrol bikes, and all the procurement will be made in future for the electric bikes. That would also incentivize the production of electric bikes within the country. We're also coming up with soft financing for the students, for the office workers, and especially the female office workers to purchase the electric bikes for their preferred mode of communication. We are very cognizant and working on a number of programs, initiatives, especially to make this transition to electric bikes, electric cars, electric buses financially sustainable for the intended beneficiaries. Thank you.
Thank you so much. On that note, I don't know if you had a chance to go to the green zone. There is a Pakistan electric bike startup there as well. The challenge was it's quite costly, so the whole idea is how do we bring the right cost down, and I think some of those initiatives really have. Let me sum this up because I think we're out of time. First of all, thank you for all the panelists for your time. Do stay, we want a picture of the drawing group, but thanks a lot. But my quick there's a lot to talk about here, and I think these are ongoing conversations, but if I take some of these quick conversations, we have to recognize Punjab is a huge country in itself, if we think about it. In terms of population, in terms of economy, we can't just label it as just a province. And so with challenges also comes a huge amount of opportunity. This transition, what we're seeing, everyone's talking about this big transition, like whether it's electrification, whether it's food, whether it's other sectors, that transformation will create so many new jobs, so much new talent. We talk about green talent, and we've met a lot of young people, and I tell them, you know, become climate specialists, learn this talent. I'm speaking to universities and teach climate because that's what's needed. We have experts sitting here, we have government officials sitting here saying this is the talent we need. So we don't need just management professionals or doctors and engineers. We do need them, but we need climate people to come in as well. So there is going to be a huge amount of opportunity. I think businesses have to play a big role. We've heard about businesses, and my ask to businesses, it's time to take the risk that you had to. This is the time. If ever you had to take a risk, this is it. But it's also not a risk because this is where the next billionaires will come from, the unicorns. Like I did a climate report just in the last 5 years, we had 63 new billionaires coming in. It's not going to come from tech, it's not going to come from textiles, it will not come from conventional industry, it will come from climate. So having those solutions is also good for your business. And we say what's good for business